that's where new value is created. That's where new products are created.
Define venture capitalist.
Well, what I do, well, a venture capitalist raises capital from insurance companies or banks and takes that capital, meets an individual who has a brilliant idea, forms a company, invests in that company, and then works closely with that entrepreneur to build that company into a public company. So Google, for example, was started by a few really brilliant young men at Stanford. They formed a company, people put capital into it, and then it grew into the company it is today.
You were born where?
I was born in Washington, D.C.
Your education?
I went to Ann Beers Elementary School in Washington, and then we moved out to Northern Virginia, went to James Madison High School. Undergraduate, I went to Principia College in Elsa, Illinois, which was a very small liberal arts school, so I was a liberal arts major. I got out of school and joined IBM, and they put me through a master's program in computer science. And then I worked for IBM for a number of years and then went to Harvard Business School.
What year did you get out of Harvard Business School?
Class of '84.
Let's watch some more of your documentary.
Okay.
By the 12th grade, only 3% of African Americans are proficient in mathematics, compared to 4% of Hispanics, 10% of Native Americans, 20% of whites, and 34% of Asian Americans.
Over 90% of middle school students are taught science by teachers with little or no training in the subject.
Out of 29 of the world's developed countries, the United States places 24th in mathematics.
I think American kids have a bigger challenge than Indian kids. And the reason is that when you grow up with economic certainty, it takes a very different kind of motivational pull. So when you grow up like I did, where, you know, my parents were both professionals, they were very smart, you know, yet we had no money. I mean, I had to buy secondhand textbooks. And now, for me, that economic opportunism is a simple beacon. It makes me work hard, it makes me apply myself. So I actually think kids in the United States have a bigger challenge of being able to get to this point because they have to apply themselves and rev their internal engine in a different way. And I'm not quite sure exactly how you get that uniformly like you do with economic opportunism.
The Chinese economy is growing so rapidly, the opportunities for people who are well educated are so extraordinary compared with a generation ago. Whereas in the US, when the general population is more comfortable, there's maybe not so much that economic drive. And we know that in high school, kids are just skating by quite often. I think we don't have the motivation throughout the society that is true in China. It doesn't mean we don't have it, but we don't have it as broadly.
You know, you've got to realize in India and China, they're struggling to get out of poverty. Higher education, becoming an engineer, becoming a scientist, is a passport out of poverty. That you're going to be much better off than your parents were, than your grandparents were, and you're going to get a lot of respect in society if you study math, science, and become an engineer. That's not the case in the USA. We have the hunger isn't there, the desire isn't there, the need isn't there. And that's why you'll find that Indian and Chinese kids are a lot more motivated to get into these fields and to succeed because they're fighting starvation, they're fighting hunger.
当时上大学的不多，所以大部分家长是没有上过大学，他们希望下一代上大学，自己的小孩肯定是能够有一个比较高的学历。
早一点叫他们那个有没有车要给的？
独生子女，还有文化大革命。那像我们这一届的吧，我们主要是 我和他爸爸两个人都是认为，就是说投资在教育啊这种。
I think my parents' idea of a success will be maybe 5 years down the line we have a very financially stable job, be happy with what we are doing, which comes first, and then like maybe a good family, like they'd want us to get married by then. I'm not so sure how that would work out, but have like a nice family, good husband, kids, and a nice home for yourself. That's what.
My mom's always there, and she's helped me study she helped me learn the alphabet. She helped me through all of my studies.
This is the alternate for plate. Use banana leaf.
One day, Tanmay. She used to sit next to me and read out everything, and I used to sit next to her and listen, and I used to grasp, and that was my ability. Once I listened, I could remember her.
He asks you a learner's license. Unless the person has a license, you can't take them with you. You'll get fined.
Yeah, learner's license. I know.
A lot of what my parents see is me coming and going. I see them at dinner on like one night a week. If they get home before about 5, they'll see me leave for work. Then I'll come home from work, and I might eat something, and I'll get changed, and then I'll come down here.
I really like my family. I get along with them great. We have our arguments sometimes.
Did you see the bite?
I think because they set high expectations, I think it's more of, I don't want to let them down. I think that's more of a punishment than them grounding me or, restricting me to going out. Just disappointing them, that guilt that you have. I think that's the reason why I strive so much for success.
What are you watching? Gosh, we can't even go a day without, or a second without watching football.
Mom, football's on one day a week. What do you mean, 1 second?
I want to have a good job, and I want to be a doctor, but I also want to have a family.
How's calculus going? Do we have a test tomorrow?
What are you studying at Tyler's?
I'm outside. I'm just hanging out there and doing homework.
Oh, I thought you said
I've heard that excuse before.
What?
I'm doing homework.
I don't care.
I don't care if you're watching Desperate Housewives.
What are you seeing so far in that?
Well, it's interesting because I've spent a lot of time in the homes of Indian and Chinese families. The families are much closer in those cultures. The parents are much more heavily involved in guiding or perhaps even pushing their children in a certain direction. And the parents organize their lives, the home life, around supporting the child's education in high school. So my programmer was telling me about his mom would, one of my programmers would get up in the morning at 4 in the morning to start brewing tea, so when she woke him at 5, he had hot tea so he could study before school. And the parents there make enormous financial sacrifices, one, to get their children into the best schools, and there are lots of private schools in India. Obviously in China they're government-run schools, but in India they make those sacrifices. And in both countries, both India and China, the way a parent shows their love for their child is if the child shows some ability in, let's say, physics, they will go out and hire the best tutor they can find in physics. Not because the child doesn't understand physics, because they want the child to understand it even more deeply and more broadly and to really expand their intellectual knowledge of physics. In America, it's just the opposite. You don't hire a tutor unless your child is not doing well. But if your child in America shows promise in athletics, say they're a pitcher for a baseball team, well, you hire a pitching coach, you hire a strength coach, you send them to baseball camp. And so the real difference in the cultures is what the families focus on and what the families reward. And in India and China,